So normally I try to completely avoid all this kind of drama and nonsense and talking about videos of comments of videos and all this kind of baloney. But this has been a really interesting day. Um, yeah, so earlier this week I did a response to an interview between Doug Woodward and Anthony Patch, talking about CERN and Patch's various theories on everything, and I included a 4-minute clip from said interview to uh, serve as an example of numerous points that I was making or responding to for the sake of discussion, for the sake of um, you know open dialogue. And I tried to be respectful. I tried to start out by saying that Patch was somebody that whose work had actually had quite an impact on me, and um, that wasn't in a lot of good ways, and that there's a lot of ways that I still find a lot of his material very compelling. I've said that in many times in the past, and yet, of course, when I started going down this path of researching into flat Earth and ancient Hebrew, ancient biblical cosmology, it just really did start to change a lot of my perspective on things, of course. And from my perspective, made a lot of the things that Patch is still continuing to talk about make so much more sense from an enclosed cosmological model. And yet, of course, he's like so many other more prominent researchers who have already published books and have material out there that which would be, of course, affected if you had to stop and rethink your position on things as big as outer space or uh, the cosmos. So apparently, so the owner of the video reached out to me this morning and left a number of comments which were, on a surface level, somewhat, uh, trying to be nice, but essentially accusing me of slander and of copyright infringement, and threatening to, hit me with a copyright strike if I didn't take down the 4-minute clip from this hour and a half interview. And I tried to respond and be civil myself. But at the same time, I also said that I found this, I appreciate that she didn't just go ahead and do a copyright strike against me to begin with, but at the same time, I was a little taken aback because, for one thing, you're talking 4 minutes out of an hour and a half interview, and yet that same hour and a half interview was straight up cut and pasted onto half a dozen other channels out there, with seemingly no response from the original author. And I looked in the description of her description of the video, and there was nothing talking about the copyright. And when I mentioned all that, there was a few hour delay, and then she came back saying that no, the copyright, it was in the description, and she did state that, and that it was copyrighted by her and Woodward and Patch, and that it's going to be part of some DVD or some series or something. So interesting, because you go it the whole without a single letter changed in the title. It just cut and paste the entire thing, put on all these other channels that had, by today it was like 17,000 views, and she's saying, oh, I've reached out to them and said that they were in copyright infringement as well. And curiously enough, it wasn't until after my video came out that she bothered. So it was like 3 weeks these videos have been up, and not a problem until somebody's actually questioning and pushing back against some of the things being said, which I tried to do in a very logical and rational way, while at the same time I'm not hiding my perspectives on, yes, the entire, just the forces at work when we're talking about, people who are in these kinds of arenas, in these kinds of circles, in a professional or some quasi-professional capacity, where there is, anytime you're putting money on the line, whether it's book sales or DVD sales, or you monetize videos, or um, you know putting, it's just, you're speaking at prophecy conferences, and having a radio show, whatever you want to do. I'm not trying to say that that's just out and out wrong, but who are we seeing all the pushback from within the Christian, the Christian Bible prophecy, the Christian truther community? It's like you can just, 99 times out of 100, the more higher up the ladder you are, the more ready to just jump out and attack it, and not want anything to do with it. And it's just all these little nobodies out there that are buying into the psyop of the flat Earth and believing all this nonsense. And it just irks me. And so yeah, I'm speaking out against that, and I'm going to continue to speak out against that. And I'm going to continue to be a voice, because this is something that is just increasingly just burdensome on my heart. When we have all the shock and awe, doom and gloom, sensationalist prophecy material out there that you could ever need and ever want. And this is sadly the kind of thing you just see all over this channel, who is seemingly has such a huge problem with my 4-minute clip, because I'm actually listening to what Anthony Patch has said, and he's talking about stars and planets being formed by the coalescing of cosmic gases, and pointing out that he's appealing to cosmic evolution. He's incorporating that into his theories on CERN, and yet nobody is even like asking him about it, or just nothing. And but yet I'm being slanderous for bringing this up. And I was very clear to say that I'm not calling anyone a shill or a plant, or questioning anyone's faith or salvation. That's not my place to do. I try to never do anything like that. But when we talk about, there's a difference between judging a person's character, judging a person's heart, judging a person's eternal salvation, or anything like that, and having discernment and judging a person's actions and judging a person's words. And while we're not called to do the former, we are called to do the latter, and we are called to to test everything and cling to what is good. And this whole little episode today has just been really aggravating, but at the same time, maybe it's good, because it kind of lights a fire in me that it just, I look at the kind of stuff that is just being churned out by so many quote unquote professional watchmen out there. And I honestly can't tell you how many people are truly finding God because of massive hole on the sun is spelling doom and gloom for the earth, and there's the locusts are about to break forth, and the Antichrist is about to be revealed, and shocking, it just like, you could almost just like put the words into a blender and just mix them up, and you could just spit out these kinds of titles all day long, and people do. And it's every other day there's like some new the economy is just about to collapse, or the put an so a big fireball on the front of your the title of your video. And just it's so formulaic at this point. It's just sad that this is your idea of ministry. And then when I look around at this whole thing with the flat earth, and just a few days earlier, at the beginning of this week, I speaking to someone who was telling me about how just through flat Earth they had come to back to the Bible and back and to believe in Jesus. And I can't tell you how many folks I've come across now who have had these kinds of testimonies and things where they found the Creator, and understood that what they'd believed their whole life about just being this insignificant accidental speck and this result of cosmic evolution and Darwinian evolution was all a lie. And what a beautiful thing that was. It happened, and the crazy thing to me is that this is happening while the vast majority of the church, and even the vast majority of the so-called, open-minded, awake Christian truthers are attacking it and slamming it and refusing to look at it and fighting it. It just makes me think about, I was reading in Acts the other day where, they brought the apostles in, and then all the Pharisees are telling them to stop preaching in the name of Jesus. And the one Pharisee says, he talks about how, there was this guy that came about, and he was claiming to be Messiah, and a few people followed him, and then it came to nothing, and then another guy, and that came to nothing. And then, with this Jesus guy, just let him go, just stop, because, if it's not of God, it'll die, it'll come to nothing. But if it's not, then in the end, you're only going to find yourselves fighting against God. And, how appropriate for what we're seeing here, where I'm seeing God do things that's like just not even, there's no human ministry behind it. It defies reason, or defies human orchestration. It's truly it's of God. It's of God. This revelation, and I'm at that point where now I've just been seeing the fruit of it, and I've been seeing so much come out of it, and so many pieces that just make sense, to where I can't just be silent. I can't just, for the sake of a superficial unity, not speak out. And it's not because I'm just trying to, I don't want to just contribute to judgmentalism and, discord, and I know that's a trap, and I don't want to get sucked into that. But name calling, and but at the same time, man, there are people that are, it's so infuriating, because there are so many people out there who are coming across this, and they're actually having the courage, or whatever, they take the time to look into it, and they eventually get to the point where they see that there's something real to this, and then suddenly they're going, so there must be some creator, there must be a spiritual reality, there must be some kind of God or something. And they're in that very crucial place, and yet the vast majority of the notable, searchable, renowned Bible teachers and evangelists and creationists and prophecy experts, quote unquote, they all they can do is mock them. And they're in that place where they need to be pointed to Christ, and they need to have explained, because there's more disinformation about the gospel than practically anything else, and more misrepresentation of Jesus, and more misrepresentation of God than anything else. And yet there's this huge vacuum that's being filled by esotericism and the occult and mysticism and Gnosticism and every variety of the Luciferian lie under the sun. And that grieves me. So that's pretty much what I have to say. So normally I try to completely avoid all this kind of drama and nonsense, and talking about videos of comments of videos, and about CERN and Patch's various theories on everything, and I included a 4-minute clip from said interview to serve as an example of numerous points that I was making or responding to, for the sake of discussion, for the sake of open dialogue. And I tried to be respectful. I tried to start out by saying that Pat was somebody whose work. All that's kind of baloney, but this has been a really interesting day. Um, yeah, so earlier this week I did a response to an interview between Doug Woodward and Anthony Patch, talking about